Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larby.
Welcome back. It is Sarah Larby, and today I have a really awesome topic, Airbnb properties, how to get the maximum dollar, and I am interviewing Ashley and Spencer Giles. They're real estate investors. They manage a lot of Airbnb properties as well as have some of their own. And we talk about how to get, top dollar for your rentals, what works, what doesn't work, and lots of great other things. So if you're looking to diversify, get into that short-term rental, potentially mid-term rental opportunities, Ashley and Spencer, not only do they manage for others, they also have their own and do a great job. And I really enjoy this podcast because, as you guys may know, I'm now focusing a lot more on those midterm opportunities, midterm tenancies. I find that the cash flow actually is a little bit better in some markets. Not all markets will make sense for this, but I also like that there is no RTA, Residential Tenancies Act. And a lot of the renters that I get are in between properties. So like my Burlington one, for example, like there's, people staying for a month, 3 months, and they're waiting for the house construction to be done. They've sold their house, they're moving, they bought another house, and they're usually like in between, which it makes them really great renters. They're not there forever. They take care of the place. And so I do love it. I think for me personally, that's probably where I'm going to go for the majority of the other additional properties that I purchase moving forward. More so the medium term than the short term. Not that I don't like short term. Short term is great for, many different types of properties, but I find midterm, 1 to 3 months, maybe 4 months, is that good sweet spot where I'm not doing as much management. My cleaner is only really going once every 3-4 months. And I find that the cash flow works just as well. I mean, it's probably not as good as like if you were to turn these places around every couple of days, but I think I found my my good like sweet spot for where I like to be from a rental standpoint. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. And again, if you need anything, sarahlarby.com. And if you wanted to email me, sarah@sarahlarby.com. So let's bring in Ashley and Spencer. Spencer, Ashley, welcome to the show. How are you?
We're awesome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm excited to have you guys on. I've been watching your Instagram posts and stories for quite some time, and you guys are living the dream. You're living the life. You're traveling. Before we get into that, can you let us know a little bit about you guys and how you originally got started in the real estate investing game?
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I mean, Ashley got started a lot earlier than I did. She didn't really realize what she was doing, but she had a little house hack going. But I myself started investing probably just over 3 years ago. I got my first property with a partner, and we actually went straight to the Airbnb route because he had already been well experienced. He had 5 student rentals at the time. And we had a few colleagues and a few friends that had switched over to the Airbnb and saw how much more money you could make, how much easier it was with, the tenancy laws, things like that you didn't have to deal with. And did the BRRRR strategy with that first one, and we haven't looked back since then. We've purchased a lot more in the last 3 years, but you can share how kind of you got started.
Sure. So the house we're living in now, I actually purchased back in 2011 for like $210,000, which is crazy and unheard of now in this area. And the only purpose of wanting to buy it, I had really no intention of getting into real estate at the time, which is because I didn't want to live at home anymore. So, and it really didn't make sense for me to rent in the city that I was still living in and going to school in. So I actually lived in the basement and I rented out the top 3 floors until we moved in together about 4 years ago. And then at that time, I was able to refinance the house and take out a HELOC or a home equity line of credit. And then we were able to kind of roll it over into other properties from there.
Very cool. So can you share what your portfolio looks like today, being the start of 2021, and then, what that looks like in terms of mix of short-term or long-term, or is it all one or the other?
Yeah, sounds good. So, total we have the 3 residential properties and 2 6-unit apartment buildings. So we have a total of 15 units. The 1 6-unit apartment building, we're actually just got the plans to add 2 units in the basement. It's unfinished, so we can put 2 bedrooms down there. So that's going to be the project this year. And in terms of, we actually do operate 10 other Airbnbs as well. We have a management business on the side. So we do have a lot of investors from like the GTA is our main clientele that have purchased property down here. And since we're in the Niagara region, we've been running it and operating it for them just to make their life a lot easier.
Very cool. So that is one of the things I want to talk about today, and you know, the benefits of short term, but also there's pros and cons to every single strategy. You know, me personally, you know, I started as renting out long term, but my last few I've changed to short term to medium term, and I think you know, there's tons of benefits to that, but there's also some risks and there's some downsides. But maybe you guys can share some of the you know, maybe the best pros or you know, the highlights of going that short-term route.
Sure. I mean, the biggest pro has to be the money, right? The bottom line, you make most of your money within like 6 months of the year, and you're not able to make that kind of cash in a long-term rental. It's professionally cleaned every time a tenant or a guest leaves, which is awesome. And then it's a review-based system, right? So we review the guest reviews us. So 99% of the guests we've had like to keep the house in tip-top form, which is awesome.
Yeah, and just to add to that, there's a lot of insurance that's backed on that part. Like we can vet our guests pretty good. I mean, like I said, you're gonna do any vetting process on a rental, but if you have a bad guest that comes, wait a few days, they're gone, right? Versus we know here in Ontario, if you have a bad tenant, well, hang on
wait a few months,
for 6 to 8 months and hope you have a good slush fund. So that was one of the main reasons, just because we did have a friend that had a pretty bad tenant that has done this multiple times and took about a year to get him out and a lot of money and headaches. So didn't want to go that route. And yeah, the money was the biggest attention grabber for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the cash and the cash flow, I mean, even for me, when I'm looking at like, you know, the mix of my cottage and my Burlington, the 2 units there, I don't know if I would have been able to create the same cash flow to be able to actually say bye-bye to my, you know, my job, because that cash flow could be very drastic, right? And I mean, obviously there's, you know, appreciation, there's mortgage pay down, but in order to really boost the cash flow, the short term to medium term strategy is definitely, I think, the way to go. And especially, you know, if, you know, maybe if it's towards the end of your acquisitions where, you know, the bank, because it's harder to get bank financing, obviously, with short-term rentals and that kind of stuff. So I think there's a great opportunity for it to be as part of the portfolio. But you talked about cash, you talked about cash flow, you know, maybe let's just take an example of one of your properties in Niagara. What would you get if you were renting it on the regular long-term market versus what are you guys, you know, getting now, and walk us through that.
Gotcha. I mean, did you want to go kind of month by month, or did you want like an annual report?
Let's do annual, but then let's talk about high season and low season and what that looks like.
Yep. So we actually just did one on one of our properties here. It's like on the border of St. Catharines and Niagara on the lake. That did $74,000 in the year. But the key point is we bought that property at $393,000 and only put $25,000 into it. So our mortgage itself wasn't that bad. And so on average, it's bringing in about $6,100 a month, which is more than double what you would get in any long-term rent here. So from a cash flow perspective, it averaged out to about $2,500 a month. But the majority of that comes in the 4 months in the summer. So high season is quite strong.
And I think for that house, for market rent, what were we looking at? 28 to 3 grand
for fully furnished. It would be like 2,800 max.
So you really can't compare.
If you guys were, and that's if you guys were to furnish it, right? So, you know, not even furnished and just regular would be what, 2,500?
2,500 would be like the ceiling probably.
Yeah.
And you guys are averaging over $6,000.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Now, obviously there's low season, there's high season, there's mid season. So it's not like you know, if you're listening to this at home, you're getting this $6,000 every single month. Some months you might get more and some months you might get less. So how does somebody like analyze what that would look like on an annual basis if they were to break it down by season and all that stuff?
Right. Like, well, I mean, what we do is we always have a slush fund for the slower seasons, but you have your key summer months. That's usually like June, July, August, and even like half of September. You're probably going to cover your entire year in about a month and a half to 2 months during those month times. So anything you make outside of those periods will be essentially your cash flow. So in the winter time, obviously, your slower seasons after New Year's and Christmas, of course, like January, February, March, even a little bit of April, you're looking at still probably covering your costs. Some months, again, especially now with the whole pandemic going on, we're getting a lot of people that want to get out of the city and work remotely with a bigger space. You know, we're close to trails and a beach, so they love that. So we've actually done a lot better than we have in previous years. But usually the goal is to cover in those slow months, and then in the summer months, like I said, 1.5 to 2 months in those key hot months, you are going to cover your entire year's expenses.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just maybe work that backwards. Let's just say, for example, it cost you 20 grand to carry that cottage or not the cottage, but your property in Niagara for the year. Right. So, so what, per night, roughly, June, July, August, like roughly what do you get per night right now?
So August would be like it's always been like the highest earning income month. In August, we were getting close to, in the weekends, 1,500 a night for like Friday, Saturday. So 3 grand for the weekends. And then during the week, we're getting $500 to $700 a night. It all depends on the group size too, because a lot of these places normally before the regulations could sleep 10 to 12. And then every guest after 5, we would charge $25 extra per person per night to offset more supplies, wear and tear, things like that. Yeah. So it could vary, but yeah, like I said, this August, just looking at the report now, it brought in 21,000 gross for August.
1 month.
Okay. And roughly that property, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but roughly, like, what do you think the carrying cost a year for that one is?
I have it right here. Carrying cost would be, with like everything, internet, cable, like all the extra stuff that you wouldn't necessarily have to pay for, 26,000 roughly.
Okay, awesome. So you can see that the cash flow can definitely be a lot better. Now, what are some downsides to going this route versus a long-term tenant?
Yeah, well, you have to furnish it. So that's one thing. If you're doing like the renovate refinance strategy, that's like another $10,000 to $20,000 of expenses that you won't necessarily see back from an appraisal standpoint. Yeah. So there is that upfront cost. Obviously, you mentioned at the beginning is that the more and more of these that you get, the harder it is to get financing, because the banks doesn't look at a short-term rental as an income source, even though it's making double than what it could make. The best they're going to do is slap a Schedule A on it and say, here, you can get $1,800, and only half of that qualifies. So that's a challenge that we've been working on. There's obviously ways to work with the banks on that, but those are probably like the biggest.
And then also Airbnb can be shut down tomorrow, right? Yep. So we never purchase a property only thinking in terms of Airbnb. We're always, when we purchase a property, we know, hey, Airbnb is our best chance to make the most amount of money. However, if that gets shut down tomorrow, we can rent it out and we'll still cover. Or we've put in enough work into the property that we know if we sell it, we'll make a profit.
Obviously have more than one exit strategy.
Yeah,
correct.
That's smart. And when you were talking about the financing and you're like, oh, they'll use the Schedule A at 1,800. Essentially what that means is like the bank will just assume that you're putting a long-term tenant in there and they're going to take market rent. And then they're going to look at half of that, or 80%. Some banks will look at 80%. Some banks will look at 50% to help you qualify and help you with that income piece. But I agree with you. Like, just like people that are working for themselves and the banks and everything, they ask for 2 years of income. It'd be nice if Airbnb, if you could show 2 years of income, just like if it was,
that would be fantastic.
And then you do it that way. Cause in a way, like there is wear and tear, but a lot of, the tenants that are going to be there are likely going to try to treat the place as well as possible, of course. So you've got the Airbnb and you've got 10 that you're managing. How are you screening right now tenants coming in and out of the places?
So I mean, we have a pretty standardized process. Like everything's automated. So we have an automated message that's sent out as soon as they even request to book. Airbnb is pretty good at only allowing certain people to what's called like instant book. If you want to book without our approval, you have to have like 4 or 5-star ratings. And we have it set pretty strict in that regards. If not, an automated message goes out to them without even like, we haven't even typed it, essentially saying, thanks for your interest in the house. Please tell us more about your group and the reason for your travel. Because a lot of the times they'll say things like, our group or we are very excited, and it's one guest.
Yeah.
So we always want to make sure that we're asking a lot of questions, and then we make sure we reiterate like the house rules and things like that if we're a little bit uncertain. But at the end of the day, like things can come through. So we've taken measures, I guess, to put security cameras in the front of the property. So if it's one guest and 10 show up, we see that. And then we have noise sensors in all of them as well. So just to kind of help please the neighborhood for sure.
Yeah. Noise sensors. Oh, that's new. That's the first time I hear about that. That's pretty cool. So I have the cameras too, but I don't have the noise sensors. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. So it's called, the company we use is called Noise Aware. So you purchase the sensor, one goes on the inside of the property and one goes on the outside. So we like getting the indoor and outdoor, right? To keep track of the noise level. You set it up onto your phone. It's an app on your phone, and you can set it to a certain decibel level, and you can set it based on the time of day. So after 10 p.m., you can make those decibel levels outside go down. And then anytime it goes past that threshold, and it's past that threshold for more than 15 minutes, you get an automatic alert to your phone, and then you can go in and you can watch it progress. So if you look, you're like, wow, this went from 0 to 100 really, really quickly, then you can make a call and be like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like it's really nice too, because it doesn't record like actual audio or anything. It's literally just
sound,
the intensity of the sound. So I think after like 2 or 3 minutes, if it's consistent, we'll get an alert. And at that point, like if it's outside, we can check like the cameras, things like that. We haven't really had any issues with it. As soon as you tell them that there's a reason why this is a quiet residential neighborhood, we have a no party policy. Like, again, we finish these houses very nice and put expensive things in them. We want them to be taken care of. As soon as you tell them that, they're usually pretty compliant.
And we're very open about that right in our listing before they even request to book. It's right there saying we have cameras, we have noise sensors.
If anyone's sensitive about that, we usually don't want them booking our place.
Yeah.
That's a good point. No, that's really cool. So what else? Like if somebody wants to get, started into this short term, whether it's Airbnb or a different site, but into the short term rentals, like what are some of the things? Okay, they have a house, maybe they just finished renovating it. Like, do you guys have like a list of like a few things that you got to make sure that they have, internet or cameras? I mean, you named a couple, but like, what else should we be aware of?
Yeah, like we definitely have a pretty standardized supply list that we have. There's things that we have as like a must. Like obviously you need a very comfy mattress. Most people with Airbnb, obviously before COVID, would show up to your place, drop their bags off, and they're gone, right? They come back, maybe make a meal, have a shower, sleep, and then they're gone. They're spending most of the time on that mattress. So having really good higher end linens, comfy pillows, comfy mattresses is like a key. Obviously having your place done properly so the temperature is good is also very important. So when you're doing your HVAC work, make sure that that's done properly. But obviously as many amenities as you can get, the better, because it runs off of like a yes or no system. Do you have it or do you not? And the more of those you can check off, the higher they're going to rank you. They're going to say, okay, these are responsible hosts. They've got everything from cooking utensils to really neat decor. Like we're going to promote them a lot higher than your competition. So, and
we usually ask, like anytime we're bringing on new clients, we usually ask owners like to spend a few days in the house and actually cook and whatever. So, oh crap, like I need a can opener, or the things that you forget to think about. It's on our supply list, but those little things guests really like.
Yeah. The number one trending thing this year is outdoor living spaces. We saw like a huge difference in the properties that we managed that had them. Like we've had a few properties in the fall that were similar, exact same house. Just one had an outdoor living space, one did not. And the person who spent $1,500 on like a cheap patio set from Home Depot and a little table made an extra 10 grand. Like it was almost consistent over multiple properties. So that one was definitely big. Outdoor living spaces people love.
Yep.
That is really good insight. I mean, other than like internet and like AC and you mentioned cable, like are there other like really cool things that you would suggest? I mean, and you mentioned the outdoor space, but anything else that, maybe indoors that we should also have, whether it's games or, just different things like that?
Yeah, we like to bring games by, even just like the ones from the dollar store. We bring like little cookbooks by or magazines and stuff. Our houses that we have are by the beach, so we also have like little beach chairs, an umbrella, and beach towels and stuff that guests can use. We also have like a very beach theme throughout the house, and I think guests really like the themed kind of stuff. Like you mentioned, if you have a cottage, to have like more of a cottage or cabin theme, guests really like that. So
Yeah, and spending the extra money on like the decor, we put a lot of fake plants and like seashells and things like that, where you're not going to see this back from a refi perspective. But with Airbnb, you have about 2 seconds to impress someone, or they're going to slide to the next listing. So you need to have those photos that capture people's attention, that literally when they're going through your photos, they're imagining themselves sitting on that outdoor patio set, drinking a coffee or a glass of wine, looking at like the beach or the trees. And you need them to actually be there to, you know, 'cause we do charge a pretty penny in the summer for that place. So you have to make sure that you spare no expense, that when they do show up, they're getting the full experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. So some great insight for sure. Now, what about when it comes to management of the shorter term rentals and the turnover and all that stuff? Like, what are some things that you can inform us about that we should be aware of?
We need to have an amazing cleaning team. They cannot be one person, especially when you're dealing with multiple properties. In the summertime, you are dealing with 3 to 4 changeovers per week per property. And to make it even worse, that changeover happens between 11 and 4 o'clock. So you only have a 4-hour window, ideally, if people check out on time, to make sure that the cleaners are there on time and they're doing a fantastic job. This year, more than ever, with everything going on, right? We've had to increase, obviously, our costs a bit on the cleaning supplies because we're using all government regulated cleaning supplies, and they are spending a little bit more time going over high touch surfaces multiple times. So cleaning team is definitely important, getting them to show up on time, to be consistent, to leave things the exact way that your photos appear. Then obviously just any general maintenance and dealing with people. We need to have eyes on the message board at all times, right? Because response time is a very important aspect for a guest experience. If they're having a small issue and you can resolve that right away, it's a small issue and it's forgotten. If you take 3 hours to respond, and it's something that's ruining their vacation, well, now you have a lot more work to do.
Yeah. And owners also forget that you need to deal with garbage too, even though like you can't ask guests to put it out every week. So we have someone else that comes in and takes out garbage once a week for us as well.
That's a great tip as well, because what did they just put in the backyard and in the bin, and then you just kind of, so that way you don't have to go inside? Should they still be there? Is that how you guys do it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we tell them at the end of their stay, just collect it and put it in that specific bin. And then even if they're okay with it, because again, it's just on the outside, if there's a guest staying there, we let them know, hey, so-and-so is going to be by at this time to grab the garbage. So it's usually on a weekly basis. In the summer, we usually ramp it up to twice a week, because the bigger groups you get, more garbage. We don't want it overflowing and dealing with raccoons and things like that.
Yeah, no, of course. So you grab that and you just bring it to the dump?
They do, yeah. They
do.
take it to the dump, and then they just charge us for whatever the extra cost was.
Yeah, that's worth it. I mean, like,
It is.
at the end of the day, especially if they're going to be in and out and it's not like they're a monthly or 2-month stay, you want to make it as seamless and easy as possible. And so the garbage thing, I think, is a great tip. Any other tips that you can share?
During the slower months, we really pivot our listings to target essential workers, especially because we're right by the canal, right by the hospital. We do have a lot of essential workers that come by. So their company's usually paying for the stay, and they'll stay for like 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And they're awesome because they're working all day, and then they come back and they sleep, and then they're working all day. But that's a great way to cover. And to be honest, we make cash flow off of essential workers.
Yeah, and from the management side of running this thing, like obviously the money is a lot better, but there's a lot more work involved. So automating your day-to-day stuff as much as you can is extremely helpful. So having those automated messages send out for like check-in and check-out, having like your cleaning team, for example, syncing into your calendar instead of trying to reach out to them every single time there's a new booking. For 1 or 2 properties, that's fine, but when you have 12 to 15 or more, you need to hold them accountable to go in. You're giving them a ton of business, so here's what we need you to do. So that's something that we've done with our cleaning team, and it's definitely saved a lot of headaches on our end.
That's great. How are you guys managing like snow and grass cutting right now?
So yeah, it's actually the same person that does, well, except for snow removal. The same person that does our garbage he actually has a property maintenance or like lawn care. What's the word I'm looking for?
Lawn care.
Yeah, lawn care business. And yeah, he does that once a week. Like I said, he'll go over and cut on a specific day. And luckily for us, a lot of our properties that we own are in the same area, but the ones in the falls, he'll go in one day and he'll hit all those. So again, if we have guests, we let them know. Snow, we've dealt with a few different companies. There's any others in the area. We're not exactly happy with the people we're using right now, but if there's I think, was it 2 inches of snow, they go and then they charge us. In the past, we've paid for the season, but we've had that happen where they've gone twice and we've spent over $500. So we've just been doing per plow now, which again, we're still kind of looking for that. We have one, but again, we're still looking for someone who can take on a little bit more properties. This person can only do a few. So we're working that out still.
In that area. Yeah. I mean, for my Burlington one, I've got a company and I paid them for the season, and they're actually, the guy's an investor too, and getting into real estate investing. I don't think he goes out your way, unfortunately. Otherwise I would
too bad
connect you. And then we've got for the cottage one, we're just paying for each plow each time. Because again, depending on if there's going to be no one for 2 weeks, I don't really care if they go or not.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. I find that's the best way to do it. Even if you pay a little bit more, it's better that way.
I think for up, if it's your cottage is up north, that makes sense. But for down here, I think last season we paid like $500, and I swear it snowed like 4 times.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's when we did our analysis. We realized we overspent in that category for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But just something to consider, right? Something to add to your internet costs, the extra insurance costs, like all those like little additional things. And, like also being an Airbnb host, like we still have to factor in, there's still maintenance and capital expenditure, but there's things like toilet paper and soap and hand paper and, all those other things that like will need to be replaced. And even just like dish, so like there's so many things, right? Like laundry. And so there's definitely a budget that needs to be allocated to that as you're looking at your cash flow. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like depending on how busy you guys are, it might be $100 a month potentially or more, right? So just keep that piece in mind. Like, do you guys have a way that you manage all the supplies right now? Is that your cleaning team or is it the way that you guys do it?
Yeah.
Sorry. Our clean team, we do like a little like playbook, I guess. Spencer kind of puts it together for them. So he takes pictures like, okay, like the glasses go here, all of that stuff. But then we also have a certain amount of amenities that are out, and then some that are behind a locked door that's just for the cleaners. So for instance, for toilet paper, we always do 1 on the roll and 3 or 4 in as spares in each bathroom, so that we don't leave the entire roll, all the rolls out there. So
and we have a supply list too, so they can go in and it has like how many should be in there. So when it's getting low, they usually let us know, and sometimes they'll go get it, but a lot of the times we just buy in bulk. We suggest Costco. Like go to Costco if you have the supply closet that's locked, by the way, make sure it's locked. Buy like 3 to 4 months worth of it at a time, just because I don't want to be running out. We don't want to be running out on like a Friday night to get toilet paper or dish soap or something stupid. We just want to make sure there's plenty there. Even when it gets down to, you only have a month left. Okay, go buy 4 more. Like it's just, we know we're going to use it. It's locked, it's controlled. So we highly suggest doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great tip. And as you were saying this, I'm just thinking, it's smart of you guys to just put 3 or 4, because during the toilet paper shortage pandemic, when COVID first started, it would have definitely been gone.
We could have been retired now by selling that, guaranteed.
But that was bad, because we were getting a lot of ours from Costco, and you could only buy like 1 at a time. Yeah. So I'd be like, okay, you go, I'll go in next.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of the pandemic, like how has the properties, or how have the properties performed, basically throughout what's been happening from, I would say March of 2020 until, today?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's actually a question we get all the time. Our St. Catharines properties did better this past summer than the summer previous. And I think it's because most of the properties we have are by the beach and they're larger. And we are finding a lot of people from the GTA just wanted to get out of their tiny apartments, and they were able to work from there. And they had a backyard, they had a beach, they had hiking trails. The places we manage in Niagara Falls didn't do as well. They definitely took a hit this past summer because they're the ones that get a lot of international and US tourists. So, yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's good insight. I mean, I guess it depends on exactly where you are and who you're catering to. What are your thoughts about, one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of requests right now on Airbnb is people wanting to quarantine in the properties. Maybe they're traveling back. I mean, personally, I don't have an issue with it as long as they're not sick and they're doing it and they let me know if they're sick. But, what's your take on people wanting to use the properties for quarantining?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely okay with it as long as they have the proper documentation. And then obviously there's a bigger cleaning procedure afterwards. But if they're quarantining there for 2 weeks and they've had no symptoms, we'll typically reach out and ask to see how they're feeling. And then we usually block a certain amount of days off after as well. The cleaners go in there, and then obviously we let our cleaning staff know the situation. So they go in with a lot more protective gear, things like that, to make sure that it's fully sanitized. So we'll spend a little bit more money on that end, but we also charge it back. So it works. We don't mind it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what about, medium-term stays? Like, do you guys do anything more than, 28 days or you mentioned 2 or 3 weeks at a time? Like, are there any requests that you get for your St. Catharines, Niagara properties for, a 1 month to 6 month type of stay?
Yeah, we do. So I actually mentioned it earlier. We get a lot of essential workers, like, because we live near the canal. So we've had a company that's rented out multiple of our properties actually and put 3 or 4 other guys in each of them. Typically we just do it in like 27, 28 day increments though. They'll just rebook. So it's not like one contract for 3 to 4 months for certain reasons there. And they've been really good with it because she mentioned the company itself is paying for it. It's not them. They don't care. And now that we've been doing this long enough, we have a lot of repeat business, so we trust them a lot more. But for anyone new, we suggest doing it that way just to be on the safe side. It doesn't hurt you. You can always waive the cleaning fee if they want to renew another 27 days or whatever.
Yeah, awesome. Now, what about just moving forward? Like, what are your plans for 2021? Are you pivoting? Are you continuing to acquire? Are you going to continue the same strategy? What's the plan for this year?
So we plan to grow our management business, and we're always taking on new clients, and it's actually gotten quite busy, which is amazing. Us personally, we've moved into more of like the long-term commercial side, and we are looking to invest in larger apartment buildings at this point.
Very cool.
Yeah. Very exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're just looking to scale up. That's all. Like, obviously if a good deal comes around, the market's pretty crazy right now, but if a good deal presents itself, we're always going to entertain it. Like, there's tons of opportunity. There's always areas to look. So we're on the MLS a lot.
But we've gone to see a bunch of properties, but every time we go see them, there's already 4 offers on this, and we're not in the mood to get into a bidding war at this point. So.
No, I mean, at the time of recording, it's January 2021, and I will say I've like everything that I would buy. I've been competing with, I would say, the minimum 5 offers at the maximum 20 offers. I mean, the supply and demand is just something I haven't seen. Like, I haven't seen it this extreme probably since I started investing 7 years ago. It's never been this nuts.
Yeah. It's crazy. So we've just been kind of leveraging everything we can that we own now, using that, and we're looking for opportunity because when it comes, we're ready.
Cool. I know we're approaching our time, but I'm very envious of all your travels, and you recently went to BC, which it sounds like it was a beautiful trip from the pictures, but you guys travel a lot. Can you just share, because obviously scaling a business and doing this, we all want to do it for bigger goals and have fun and to be able to have that time freedom. It's not about just like acquiring properties. And it sounds like travel's a big thing for you guys, and you've got some cool travel hacks sometimes, and you've got some really good insights. So I'm just going to throw it out there. You guys feel free to share what you want, but what can you share about traveling?
Yeah, so when we first met, Spencer wasn't a big traveler. I was always the bigger traveler, and I took him on his first long haul flight to Vietnam like 4 years ago or so. And he, at that point, was like, there is no way I can do 14 hours in economy all the time. There's got to be a way to do this better. So that's when we started to get into travel hacking and collecting points and miles. And now we're able to fly these long haul flights in business and first class. It is definitely a full-time hobby. If you want to get really into it, you really have to put a lot of time and energy into it. But we first started reading a lot of blogs. Prince of Travel is a great Canadian resource, and paying attention to what credit cards you have and what points you can use them for. So we typically use Aeroplan miles. It's the best for Canadians right now, the best program to use right now. That's how we got out to BC. It's how we got to Banff in the summer this past year. So you're looking at TD, CIBC, they have Aeroplan branded cards, and Amex, to be honest. That's mostly, Amex is what we target the most. And don't be afraid of high minimum spends, because they come with high point values, and those point values can get you $10,000 flights.
Yeah, so I mean, like the main reason why we did that obviously is for real estate, is for time freedom, because we do love to travel. And there are ways out there where you can, the one trip we did last year, I think would have retailed over $100,000 per person, and it cost us just under $1,000 from these points things. And when you tie it into real estate, you typically have a decent expense portfolio when you're looking at materials, and if you're paying certain contractors that they take credit, but usually just materials alone. If you put it on the right categories and in the right cards, there are obviously point multipliers, but also bonuses that you can get. So if you time things properly, it's very easy to hit these minimum spends that come with a big sign up bonus. Like you can get 2 cards right now and then put your materials on, and in 2 or 3 months, you're flying business class round trip to Southeast Asia and back for $100. Right. So we kind of put the 2 and 2 together. So we make sure that all of our expenses, not only do we get to write those off from tax purposes, but we're going to get a return back from points and miles perspective, and travel frugally, but high end.
Very cool. I mean, it sounds fun. It sounds like you said it was another full-time hobby. So,
yeah.
But, it's well worth it. I mean, a $10,000 flight, if you can get it for $100, why not? And I will preface this by saying, I'm sure you guys are very good with your credit cards and pay them in full. So like, guys, don't just go out and get stuff on points and spend stuff and pay like 19% interest rate, because that will defeat the whole purpose.
Yeah, correct. Don't do that. But also don't be afraid of having multiple credit cards, because when done right, and like you said, you pay it off in full, it does actually help your credit. And I think a lot of people don't understand that part of it.
Awesome. Thanks guys for sharing. It was tons of fun talking about, short-term rentals with you. The next part of the podcast is the lightning round. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You can share the same answer, or you can each give me an answer, however you guys want to do it. That's cool. You ready to play?
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Here's the first question. Question number 1. What is your favorite real estate investing book?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not. I know it's just specifically real estate. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That counts, right?
Yeah. That's the number 1 mentioned book when I asked the question.
Yeah. I believe that for sure.
Yeah. All right. Number 2. I don't know if you guys are podcast listeners, but do you have a favorite podcast? It could be about any topic.
You listen to more than I do. We've been listening to the Andrew Hines podcast a little bit more.
Yeah. Wow. I think Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
That's the one that I started off with. I went nuts with that when I found it.
All right, cool. Number 3, what do you do for fun when it's not about real estate investing?
Does travel count?
Travel. We're also very big sports people. Him into hockey, me into soccer.
Yeah, I love playing hockey.
Nice. Sounds fun. So I'm just curious, here's a follow-up question, but how many trips do you take a year on average, COVID aside?
So we usually take one larger trip. So we also work full-time still. So we do have vacation time constraints for now. That's hopefully going to change soon. So we take usually one larger trip, like 3 weeks. We take another trip that would be like 10 to 12 days, and then probably 3 or 4 long weekend trips.
So maybe
all right. Well, that's still a good amount. What do you guys do for work for your full time?
I work in HR.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a sales manager for a food processing company. I don't know. Can I say it, or is it going to be?
I mean, you can say it if you want. It's up to you. You don't have to, but sales manager for sales. Awesome.
Yeah, sales manager. Perfect.
All right.
Both of us have been more busy during COVID, not less. How about that?
we plan on leaving the house very soon. That's why I didn't want to say it.
Nice. All right. Number 4, if you lost all your money, all your assets tomorrow, how would you start again?
Raise capital.
Yeah. Raise capital. That's a good one.
All right. And number 5, last question. If somebody has $50,000 and they want to get started, what do you recommend they do with that money?
Talk to us.
Wow.
Do you want to expand on that at all?
Well, we're always looking for partners,
Okay.
right? We're working with a few people right now that want to get started on their first deal. So again, they've worked really hard to save up a lot of money, and they don't want to make any mistakes, but they don't know where to start. So we're partnering up with these people to help them, and it benefits both parties, right? We're going to make sure that we get them a rock star deal, and we get a small piece of it as well, right? For our time.
All right. Very cool. Thanks for playing the lightning round. Spencer, Ashley, where can my listeners reach out and find out more about you?
So we're on Instagram at Spencer and Ashley, and also our property management company is Travelex Property Management on Instagram.
All right, very cool. And I finished with this question to all guests. Any final last words of advice?
Last words of advice. We say just go for it. With the real estate stuff, I know Spencer had talked about it for a while, and it took us a little while to actually pull trigger. So just go for it, and always have exit strategies, multiple.
Yeah. My thing is just plan and then execute, like follow through with it, right? I know a lot of people read a ton of books and they're ready, but you don't take that next step until you actually go out and do it. So execution is key.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashley and Spencer. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larby. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?